Okay, council session. Good evening and welcome to the North Bend City Council session, council work session and Urban Renewal Agency work session for Monday, October 21st at 4:32 here in the council chambers. I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order and then have a roll call here.
Councilor Jones.
Here.
Councilor Hamilton.
Here.
Councilor Garland.
Here.
Mayor Ingleby.
Here.
Councilor Goff.
Here.
Councilor Schultz.
Present.
Councilor Nordoff.
Present.
Thank you.
Okay. Before we head into item number 3 on the agenda, which is public comment, I want to ask the council if they are interested. It sounded like there were some questions around the affidavit of compliance with resolution number 3287, and if they wanted to add that to the work session to get some more information or clarification about that affidavit.
Yep.
Okay. So does that get some more information on that? Okay. I will look to our city administrator and the timing of the work session. Do you think it's best to add that at number 9 or 8 or 8.5?
Given that we also have Ms. Elaine Howard in the presentations, I would say let's go ahead and add it as a new number 9.
Okay,
And make
and-
adjournment 10.
Okay. All right. Perfect. Then I'll go ahead and move on to our public comment, which is number 3. Is there anybody here for public comment online or in person?
There's not.
Okay, all right. Well, just a reminder that we always enjoy public comment. If anybody wants to participate at a later point, they can look to the website to see how to do that. Number 4 on the agenda is the VCB appointment and review of intergovernmental agreement, IGA, and with Coos Bay, North Bend Visitor and Convention Bureau, number 4. Mr. City Attorney, do we have a presentation today, I believe?
We have a presentation. I think the agenda is a little misleading.
Okay.
It's not, I don't think we're discussing the appointment. I think if this was a counselor request from Councilor Jones for information.
Oh, yeah.
And so if there's any lead-in, it would be appropriate to hear from the counselor. Otherwise, we'll move forward with the staff presentation.
Okay.
Yeah, so what I was curious about, I was under the impression, and this is, my bad, but I was under the impression that the VCB was, we were lucky to get a seat at the table. We weren't actually paying services, like whatever taxes that pool is from, it was funneled to that organization and then we got a seat at the table. And that's great, that's great, it's marketing, it's great. But I also know that we've been scrambling for a few $1,000s for July Jubilee. We need to build tourist attractions and we do not have much in the budget for that. And so given that this has gone from, my understanding is that it's gone from we're lucky to be at the table versus we're actually paying to be at the table, I think it would be interesting to be educated on that process, but also to consider that since we need to build tourist attractions, we should probably reserve some of that money so that we can build things for them to market. So that was my impression, and I'm very willing to be led through all the pieces of that.
Okay. Well, I think we have 2 people here today to talk to us about that.
Actually,
No?
no.
We'll just answer questions.
Answer
if they
questions.
come.
Okay.
And you have a very educated counselor who
Okay.
can answer those questions too.
Well, we've always been in the tape.
Well, you've been hurt, you've been called a lot worse than that, Larry.
So is there, to guide the discussion, is there some specific questions that you want to ask, or did you want to speak first, or how did you want to have this conversation? 'Cause I know
Yeah, so it's in the staff report is an excellent summary. The specific questions were, how much is our contribution? What can the funds go? And then if I'm reading the information correctly, I'm assuming that we could use our pool that we're paying towards building tourist attractions, rather than just doing it all for marketing. Like we need something to market. We need more to market. And it doesn't seem like the VCB is an organization to facilitate that. That feels like that's a city function where we should be building our tourism within ourselves and then saying, here, market this, in addition to the other things that we have shared. And so those are the basic questions. If that makes sense to people. And then the follow-up questions are all in the minutia of that, like, we could have used some money to pay for the rink, but we had to go get grant money. We could have used it to repair the boat launch. There are things that came out of the funds. And since we're the only city that has this measure where we can't increase or add fees, we're in a worse spot than other municipalities might be. And so it seems to me then that we should look at this. I mean, it's marketing, it's a bang-up job. It's great, but we have to build some stuff to market more than just what we have.
There's other TLT dollars that the city is to retain. And they've got some flexibility on what we can do with those.
So have we ever approached you for infrastructure?
Well, that's outside our purview.
Okay. So it is a marketing arm, it's a marketing
The
arm.
whole purpose is to generate heads and beds in the hotels,
Okay.
which increases monies coming into the restaurants.
Yeah, I get the effect.
Right.
I get the effect. Yeah, so that makes me think, since we need to do more to build some attractions, maybe we should rethink.
What attractions are you thinking? I'm confused by what you mean by that. 'Cause I think-
We don't have any attractions, we have a skating rink, we have,
Well, we have July Jubilee, we have kind of events like the.
I'm not
trunk or
thinking of any
treat,
that I know
like-
of, we need to build
I
some.
just am confused by what you mean by that, kind of.
I just mean we need to build more tourist attractions. And I don't know what they would look like.
The urban renewal plan, as it currently reads, there is, in phase 4 or 5, there's plans, a suggestion of putting a kayak launch down on Pony Creek on the north side of that bridge on Virginia. Nobody's ever addressed that, but it's there.
Yeah.
So that, and the urban renewal district goes out to Marion, all the way out to the new food
So
place.
those are the
So urban
things,
renewal
Let me,
funds are
let me
different, I think.
jump in here
Right,
really
it's
quick,
different,
just so that we can help sort of guide this. So let's, I'm looking at the questions here. So the first question that is kind of listed is how much has North Bend contributed over time? And then what can VCB funds be used for and so forth? Do we want to are you prepared to kind of answer some of those questions?
yeah,
here, or we
walk
can-
us through it.
Staff is, it's a
Okay.
staff report.
Okay.
So
So-
at this point, we'll answer the first question. We have our finance director who will answer the
Okay.
first question.
Oh,
Data here from going back to 2014. The blue that you see on this graph is the room tax that we've collected, and the orange is what we've paid ECD for those same years. So you can see, since 2014, it's been just shy of $1 million that the city has sent. It follows an agreement that has some calculations in it that's done every quarter. It's a certain percentage of the first 7% and then a different percentage of the second 2.5% of the tax, and it really is dependent upon a base of what the lodging taxes were for that quarter.
okay, so we have two tables here. We've got a table and we've got your graph. I'm inclined to think that what the city records show is, I'm gonna go with that as the right numbers.
Right from the
They're a bit
general ledger,
different.
yeah.
But so for example, just to say it out loud, in 2024, it looks like around 300,000 we paid on January 1st, 2024.
Well, that's the tax that we
Yeah.
collected. So then for 2024, we would
Oh,
have
I'm
paid, it's under the professional services line for 119,000. So,
Okay, so we rolled to the VCB 119,000.
Right.
Yeah.
correct.
Okay.
A good rule of thumb, if you see going back to like 2020, you see 41%, 39%, 40%, 40%, 39%. So roughly 39, 40% is what the city is sending of the tax
The
it collects.
proportion of the transient lodging.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
And the city retains the other 60%.
okay.
And so I'm going to ask the counselor, if like is this helpful to understand?
Yeah,
Okay, so how much
definitely.
we're contributing? So is your question kind of the basis of your question trying to figure out, I think you're like trying to understand what are we getting for our money? Is
Yes,
that's
yes.
basically what you're asking for?
Yeah, well, so, the VCB is doing a bang up job with what they do. My thought, so this is not a complaint about the services or anything like that. What it's noticing is that, I believe, now I might be the only one, but I believe that we need to build more tourist attractions. And we also, had to scramble a few $1,000s for July Jubilee. So there's some play in here, I imagine. And so, stepping through this is terrific. I love it. And, it's not for me to decide exactly what it is, but it is for us maybe to consider in our strategic plan how our tourism dollars are gonna break out next time, and if that seems appropriate.
Well, I understood that the July Jubilee was because after the budget was we already developed the budget, so to then trying to like reallocate, that was just that 1 year. Now there is something in the budget for July Jubilee, correct?
Yes.
There is.
Yeah.
True. But we had to find it elsewhere, and I know we have tourism dollars, I know we have the transient lodging tax, and so I wanna understand what that mix is.
Yeah.
All right, so Madam Mayor, if it's appropriate, we've answered the first question. Can we move on to the second?
Yeah.
Second
So,
qu-
yeah, go ahead.
The second question is, what can the VCB funds be used for? So she has posed a question. That's controlled by state law. I know that the counselor says the primary role is heads and beds. The state actually differs on their opinion slightly. Yes, heads and beds is important.
Primary.
However, under state statutes and training that we as administrators and the economic development folks receive comes from ORS 320-350. And it says that they're legally allowed to spend the transient lodging taxes on 4 areas. One is tourism promotion, the second is tourism-related facilities, the third is tourism-related services, and the last is administration or overhead costs. And so we have a contract with the VCB, meaning this governing body has a contract. Once that money goes over, you lose the say as a governing body how they're going to spend their money.
Right.
They have an independent board, which the counselor serves on, and that governing board decides their budget, and then their staff implements their policy, their budget. And so, and we modified that contract in 2022 in September, when the vote went through to bring on board Charleston. And so that's bringing in some additional funds there. So is there any questions on question or item 2?
So that was kind of answering what can VCB funds be used for, and
Yes.
so
So what could DLT fund be used for?
what's worded here, what can VCB funds be used for? If the
Well,
contract.
okay, so let me recap, maybe we can fish out the details. So, the VCB's primary function is to market for this area. And that's what we pay roughly 40% of our tax funds that are allowed for tourism to that. The VCB can also say yes to some infrastructure changes. They could have said yes to some other things if we'd asked them. I don't know if we have or not, but I suppose that's true. But the rub is that at the point at which we ask VCB for doing an infrastructure project, that's not their main thing, and they're probably gonna say no. Maybe they gave us a little money for July Jubilee, some sort of bucket of that. But it isn't the same as, saying yes to the skating rink or something else. And that might not be, that's probably not the place for that, right? The city and the council should agree on these infrastructure of tourism attractions, and then we give it to them to market. Okay, I think that's what I'm understanding.
That's what it should be, yeah.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Yeah, so their governing body determines what their priorities are and how they want to use that money
Yes.
within the confines of the state law. So they have 4 buckets for which they can set their policy.
Okay.
The next question was, what should North Bend's council or city leadership do differently to ensure we are receiving adequate financial support for our recreational and tourism initiatives? That's more so a council conversation. And then there has been feedback that the benefits from the VCB contributions cannot be broken down by partner city. That is probably a very accurate statement. They have used big data and other mechanisms to try to isolate where their marketing efforts are paying dividends, but generally trying to say, we're isolating this to North Bend or isolating it to Coos Bay or Charleston is actually pretty difficult, if you will, unless you have some type of tracking mechanisms and everything. Like every advertisement, do we have a special number for North Bend? And so you could create, or folks that come in, big data that can track them. And so that's kind of rather difficult, if you will. And it's something that in my 17 years, every BCB or Vic has had that same issue.
Well, I think that.
But they've had that request, but it is difficult. And so what you do is, you know, if their focus is going to be heads on beds, what's our occupancy rate? And so then you would ask the VCB or you would ask your representative. You know, they get reports. They know what their occupancy is. They pay for those reports. They can tell what their occupancies are within, and they can break those down. There's limited information that they can release. We can't, for instance, even release the data that we get. We actually sign data with the state, so we can't tell you what any given hotel's doing. But they have the market reports, and so.
So when you say big data, what I'm assuming is that part of your researching is to use information from elsewhere about where tourism is going to make choices about where to feed the varying marketing programs.
A lot of big data is tracking, so the latest trend, you know, has been anything from QR codes to cell phones to any other technology or, you know, like it says, custom marketing tools.
It also seems like a key to this arm is creating regional brands, Adventure Coast, and placing that name, Adventure Coast, advertisement, various things for us as a whole region into magazines and online feeds where people are going. So it is like an up, one step up. And so it doesn't really, so that's what that is, and I understand that. Yeah.
And Councilor Jones, if I could insert something here. So as stated before, our council president, Garboden, is a board member on the VCB. And so that's where, like, that's our link to hear more information, get updates on if they have a strategic plan session once a year or however they meet. We could ask him during council committees reports to come back and give us some more updates, or if that would be the right linkage, right? If this council was like, hey, if it fits with the strategic plan of the VCB and we want to see a Ferris wheel downtown North Bend, that would be something that, you know, we would then go to our liaison here, or who's the board member, and say, you know, see if this is a conversation that would be appropriate when you're on this committee, if it aligns with it. Am I tracking the right way? Like, this is how we would want to move. That would be our avenue as a council to try to move things forward.
You have an appointee that should be an advocate for your body. Yes, that is. But that's not to say that, you know, unless he can get the same number of votes, you know, based on the size of their board, you know, it's balanced, it's democracy.
Yeah.
And so, yes, and so you get the reports back accordingly. That said, Madam Mayor, we've answered the questions, we put in the packet information. We also emailed the governing body information that the VCB has, and then you have your transient room tax. And so at this point, staff will answer any additional questions that you might have.
Let me get a temperature of where we're at with the council. We have hit our 15-minute mark. Are you guys, is everybody okay with maybe one more question?
It really is a short one.
Okay.
Barbara just Councilor Shastas gave me the eyeball, gave me the teacher ball. What is the timeline? So say we had something new, interesting coming up. How many months or years in advance do we need to be able to say, this is coming online to get into? Because all of these deals that you probably make, or most of them, are way ahead of the season. They're a year or more in advance. So what is that timeline?
And Madam Mayor, I don't want to be disrespectful, but, so again, you have to work through your chair, and so if your chair wants to go beyond staff, there's a process for that, or you have your
My bad.
representative.
So, did you hear all that?
Well, I'm not, I can't answer that question,
Dizzying.
because there's multiple avenues they use for advertising or whatever else. I mean, social media and things on the computer, that can be done relatively quick. Anything you have to have an ad buy for TV or radio or billboard or something else. I don't know what lead time is, but there is lead time to it.
Okay. Yeah, and it's a long one. It tends to be a season or a year. This is my guess.
Now,
This is my guess.
I don't think it's a year long, I think.
I will say to
90
Council
days to 6
Council
months.
President Garbone, I don't know how the rest of the council feels, but I'm okay with two people here that have a lot of information giving us some more information. If we want to, as a council, decide to invite them up and to speak to this, we need to be mindful of
That was supposed to be
time.
a quick question, so I do
I'm
have
sorry.
an issue with that, though.
So I mean, we have people here that are very knowledgeable in
Yeah,
this.
And they provided us.
And that, so if you
read.
feel like you're not getting all your questions answered, we
Yeah.
can use that as a resource.
Yeah.
But if you feel like you want to move on, we can do that as well. So it's really what the will is of the council.
They could probably answer it fairly quick.
I just, why not use the
Yeah.
time if we want these
Because we're
questions
over
answered?
50 minutes and we have a lot of things to cover tonight.
So I'm hearing Council Schultz say she'd like to move on. What am I hearing from the rest of everybody?
I'd like to give them 5 more minutes. and let them answer
Hamilton,
the
are you
question.
okay?
Okay with that.
Councilor Gall, you okay with
I'm
you?
sure it's all budgeted out ahead of time, so, yeah, go ahead.
Councilor Nordoff, are you okay if we take a couple more minutes to?
A couple more minutes.
Okay,
Sure.
all right.
You're
So
on.
with the permission then of the council, we have a lot on the agenda this evening. So I'm going to ask our city recorder to help us with maybe kind of a 3-minute clock here to see if you want to answer some of these things.
So I'll handle your question first, which is, we do have lead times based on what we're doing. So when we are asking for information on an event in particular, we want at least 3 months in advance, and, at least the bare bones at 3 months, but the closer we get, the more we get at that 3-month mark. If we are doing print ads, we're looking at 6-month lead time. Now, we never have like a year-long lead time unless we're doing a brand-new ad campaign in which we are hiring models and photographers and all of that, and then we're trying to figure out what that is. So, but that is a much bigger project than a regular advertising.
And I think you asked the question initially of, what are you getting for the dollars? And as a reminder, those dollars are from the hotels and motels, right? So those taxes then go to the city keeps a portion, and then a portion goes to the VCB. Janice provided you with a document that spells out kind of exactly what you receive for those dollars. It breaks down the marketing budget, and you can also see the other municipalities. You've got North Bend, Coos Bay, the tribe, and the county. And so what you can see is it's a pretty impressive number now that we have finally got to really promote this region and promote the assets in it.
Thank you, ladies.
Yeah, which is still a third probably of the budget of most of our competitors on the Central and North Coast.
So does the casino fall by itself, or is that part of the city of North Bend?
By itself. So the tribe has come in as a partner, and they are the only tribe in the state of Oregon that participates with a VCB in this way.
They started providing in 2010.
Yeah, I
Okay.
didn't know that.
So that was less than 3
Thank
minutes.
you.
I'm going to guess if there are people, anybody watching or on council, if they ever wanted to have a longer conversation or understanding, and Councilor Garbone wasn't able to answer those questions, that they could come to any of your offices at any time.
Indeed, and we're always, and in your packet is also this document, which kind of gives a bigger understanding, especially of that split, so.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
all
you
right,
so much.
thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate
One
that.
last thing, the city of North Bend's split, the 60%, is able to be spent however you guys
want.
see.
Okay, all right, thank you. We didn't even have to hear the timer go off on that one. Okay, all right, well then that will take us to the next item on the agenda, October 21st work session agenda item from Counselor Nordoff, page 5. There's some information on your packet on this. Page 30, where did 5 come from? Item 5, page 30. Okay, so it did come from somewhere. Counselor Nordoff, this is your agenda item. Thank you, City Recorder, for helping us keep on track on these, so we can keep this one, start our timer on that one now. Thank you.
So this item is kind of a throwback to the action that the city took in 2021. So it'll be kind of a first pass for the councilors who were elected in 2022. They probably not, it's probably new information. And it concerns the transportation system plan, which is a part of our comprehensive plan that undergoes periodic updates. And back in 2021, the city passed an update to that. And there were many facets of this update to the transportation system plan. The one that I particularly paid attention to was the designation as a collector of Meade and Connecticut. And Mr. Dunham has pointed out that no, that designation, that collector designation, did not include Union or Florida. But basically, it functions as a way to bypass downtown and go from State Highway 540 to State Highway 101 northbound without having to go through the lights on Virginia at Sherman and Sheridan. Now, the route had been designated earlier as a collector for heavy trucks coming and wanting to go west on Virginia, and they were then able to bypass downtown by turning onto Connecticut from 101 southbound. That means that they don't have to make that real tight corner right in the heart of the city. But the difference is that the intersection of Meade and Connecticut back decades ago, when this was designated as collector, and I'm fuzzy on the actual year that that was designated, the stop signs were in place, westbound on Connecticut and northbound on Meade. Stop signs. So at that time, I believe it was at least a 3-way stop, both directions at Connecticut and northbound on Meade. Okay, so what changed in 2021 after the transportation system plan passed was the removal of the blessing, I guess, the city's blessing on the permanent removal of the stop signs at Meade and Connecticut. Meaning westbound traffic turning off of Highway 101 South can go, and they have a free left turn to turn onto Meade from Connecticut. Northbound traffic avoiding the downtown has a free right-hand turn onto Connecticut from Meade Avenue. The photographs that I included in your packet will show the cumulative effect on the pavement and its damage to the pavement. And is there a way to bring these up on the monitor, please, Macy? I'll keep talking here.
I
The
don't
other-
think that there is, not on this one.
Well, that's too bad, because that's why I sent in photos. But, all right, so the first one shows the potholes that are developing at Meade and Connecticut, as vehicles don't have to stop and can make the corner without slowing down. And we are talking heavy trucks and pickups with boats. And the torque that the wheels apply to the pavement is gouging the pavement, and you can see that right there. That is not going to improve, and there are no state highway funds to fix this. And in my opinion, it's a self-inflicted injury, because we should be protecting our pavement, not using it as a disposable item. So the traffic reports are there from 2015 and 2022. And I understand that people who grew up here, they use that as a bypass to go home to Simpson Park. But Bill Richardson, longtime counselor, before we voted on this, he watched the traffic, and it was his opinion that he brought back to the council that this is traffic that is going home using the bypass around downtown to catch Highway 101 to go north across the bridge at the end of the workday. This is county traffic using interior city streets to bypass the lights downtown. Now, more on the lights downtown. Evidently, the traffic modems were broken because I asked, why do we need this? And I was told, oh, we need this because there's a backup. Well, Bill Richardson and I convinced the others on the council, and I think there were only 5 of us at that work session, but there was a majority. The council went and contacted ODOT. The ODOT engineers came out and they checked the traffic modems. And the traffic modems were broken so that, of course, you're not going to get through the lights. There's going to be a backup because the way it is now, the first light turns green and 30 seconds later, the second light turns green, just like going through Coos Bay. That's what they're supposed to do, the traffic light modems. They were broken. Nobody had checked on that. So, oh, of course there's a backup. You get through the first light and you're stuck. And then people, have to back up behind the first light because the lane at the second light on Sheridan is backed up. And incidentally, that is what got our Public Works Director, Mr. Dunham, appointed to the that's the wrong word. Southwest Area Commission on Transportation, that one.
Madam Mayor?
So, and I see the emails too, they come through, it's the local topic, the local group with ODOT that discusses local issues.
Do you have, Councilor Nordoff, I think we're going to hit our 15 minutes.
So what
Do you
I would
have
like
tie it all
to
up?
do is to ask the council to consider replacing the stop signs. We're gonna have to, at some point, repair the street. The stop signs will protect the investment we have in our interior city streets. And last thing I'm gonna say is, this is not only North Bend traffic, this is Coos Bay traffic, this is Barview, Empire, and Charleston traffic that are using interior city streets to go northbound on Highway 101. It's state highway traffic that we have brought through the removal of these stop signs. We have encouraged people to go ahead and use interior city streets, and there's damage.
Thank you. We are on our 15 minutes on that item. Is there a question right now that the council has, or should we move on to the next agenda item?
I have a question.
Okay.
How often does the traffic plan get updated?
That would be a question for Mr. Denham. How often?
It's on a 20-year cycle, 10 to 20-year cycle. They don't like her update on 10.
Okay.
That was a 2000 plan, it was updated, officially adopted in 2021, but it's a 2020 plan.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions? Okay. All right, then we'll go ahead and move on to item 6, which is the CASA 2025 Pinwheel Ride Event in-kind sponsorship request. We've got some information on our packet here, page 53. Wait, yes.
Madam Mayor, they sincerely apologize that they could not make this meeting. However, I told them that I would go ahead and carry the water on this one. There is no provision in our existing community center for waiving fees. In the past, when we've had one that is in line with council goals, I brought it to you, sought consensus of the council. And so in this case, they're asking to have the community center fees waived for the CASA 2025 Pinwheel Ride event. They were instructed to go ahead and secure that facility. Depending on what the council decided, we would follow up. And so you have a staff recommendation in there that since we no longer are in a position of utilizing the gas tax money, we've used that in other areas. And so I think this is appropriate use of the facility that would actually have great benefit and aligns with council goals, which you've done also proclamations on. So it's really the consensus of the council. You're talking about nominal funds.
Okay. I think Councilor Hamilton has something to say.
Sorry, forgot the silence.
Yeah.
Real quick, this event, I've been to it the last 2 years. Last year, that community center was packed. They had jump houses and had kids everywhere. CASA is a very good organization that's also partnered with PACA, which is another kid protection group for domestic violence and that type of thing. So I would also ask the council to waive the fees on this for this event because it's a very good event for the community.
Great. Any questions or concerns?
I'm in, we just need a consensus.
Okay. All right. I'm not seeing any issues from anyone, so I think that you have a consensus that we can waive that.
All right, thank you, council.
Number 7 is to review the city council packet for October 22nd, tomorrow evening. Do you want to walk us through that, Mr. Millern?
First, you have on your consent calendar, this was discussed at your last meeting, so you have the appointment, that was the clarification from earlier. So this would be re-upping Council President Garbodin for 2 years to the VCB, and then you have your acknowledgement for the bills for September 2024. Is there any pulls from the consent calendar? All right.
No.
Next, after your public comment, we have a public hearing. This is case file, portions of right-of-way contained within Block 12. And so the staff will provide you a brief presentation at this time. And your city planner, Derek, thank you.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and City Council. So before you tomorrow night is another vacation of a right-of-way contained within Block 12 of Midland addition to North Bend, Coos County, Oregon. This vacation is for the south half of Commercial Street fronting 3390 Broadway. And this situation is a little bit unique given that the state highway runs through this area as well. And so just to give you a little bit of background, ODOT had purchased a bunch of right-of-way, much of real property, and turned it into right-of-way in order to create what is commonly called Dead Man's Curve. And when this occurred, the underlying right-of-way that runs east-west in Commercial Street was never vacated. As a result, there is technically an island of right-of-way kind of in the middle of where the Broadway and the curve go. And, you know, that was never vacated. So the purpose of this vacation is twofold. One, to clean up this situation of ambiguous land that the controller cannot develop. And two, to allow development of a sign that is compliant with North Bend City Code, Chapter 18.70. The applicant has received consent of all adjacent property owners and 69% of the affected property owners, with the minimum being 66%. And one of those property owners was in opposition of the affected property owners. That property owner took exception to the use of the development as a service station on a basis of noise and traffic. The planning department did respond to this property owner in writing, stating that while we understand his concerns, the city cannot regulate that which is expressly allowed within the zone, and that being the service station use. Nor do we control access or circulation to the site, which that authority lies with ODOT. Some steps that have been taken to address these concerns, though, are requiring hooded lights to help limit light spread off-site, requiring additional plantings along the right-of-way separating the commercial and residential zones. And furthermore, they eliminated one of the driveways that was historically used for the Sizzler when that was still in operation. And finally, the site being occupied provides a tenant to maintain security and cleanliness at the site, which is something that we struggled with as an enforcement agency when the site was vacant. Notice was posted on location and published in the World newspaper in accordance with ORS 271. The public interest is not prejudiced by this vacation, with the condition that an easement be recorded prior to the finalization of the vacation for the utility lines that exist within the area proposed to be vacated. This easement shall outline appropriate setbacks of any proposed construction in the area. Staff finds that City Council can approve the vacation of application 627-24-000026-PLNG and ordinance number 2078 pending Planning Commission's final order. And Planning Commission meets on this item tonight. So this is a little bit, this is pending Planning Commission's approval.
Okay.
And just a quick question, is Dead Man's Curve actually a state highway?
It is.
Okay, because it's, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I killed a deer there.
Okay, so this is ordinance, well, we have the public hearing,
Yes,
and then we'll go into ordinance 2078.
yes.
And then, any questions so far? Okay. Are there other items on the agenda that you need to discuss for tomorrow night?
Yes, but later.
Okay,
Thanks, Derek.
Thank you.
okay.
All right, council, the next item is a public hearing tomorrow. This is the consideration of the rate increase for North Bend sanitation. And then you'll notice there's an accompanying resolution number 3360. We have a franchise agreement with the sanitation company. I met with North Bend Sanitation. We're in mutual agreement that we'll be working on updating and bringing our franchise agreement up to 2024 standards. It is grossly one of the oldest. To say the city of Powers has a better franchise agreement in place than we do. That's the reality. One change that I am perpetuating here is you'll notice in here in historic, they've done a CPI adjustment, it's usually for the western states. They have worked in kind to put that in line with what we do with our standard fees, which is our charter amendment, and look at the Social Security cost of living. So you have before you resolution 3360 that ties it to the 2024 Social Security cost of living, which is 3.21%. You'll notice that will result in 87 cents per month for a 35-gallon cart, $1.10 per cubic yard increase. We have a representative from North Bend Sanitation that will gladly answer any questions. The franchise agreement will also bring into line a lot of services that we receive that are not in this very historic document. And when I tell you it's historic, it's I think it's older than me. And so, so there's a lot of things that aren't even in there that are contemplated that need to be addressed. So with that said, I'll hand it back over to the council. You have a script for you for the public hearing, and then of course, as I mentioned, you have the resolution, and then we have a representative from North Bend Sanitation if you want to hear
Okay.
further.
All right. Thank you for being here tonight.
This was coming, because
Yeah.
they picked my brush up today.
Yeah. Do you want to go ahead and come forward and introduce yourself since you're here? Thank you for joining us today. I'm not sure if we have any questions, but I thought you're here. We might as well
No,
get
it's
to
great.
meet you.
I know, my name is Luke Pike with North Bend Sanitation. I've been, Bill Richardson's obviously retired. Craig Heimer, you see him on the paperwork, he's gonna replace him as the site manager. And so I've been able to work with Bill for the last 3 years. I cover Southern Oregon for our company, but I'm very familiar with North Bend and very familiar with Bill and how everything operates here. So here with any questions you might have. You did mention the yard debris. That's, something that David brought up, with our franchise agreement, in the yard debris. It's something that, that maybe was implemented 20 years ago, but, with growth and then when we started picking up, it took 2 weeks before, it's now taking 3 weeks just because of the amount of volume of stuff. So that's something that we might think about expanding that program. Just allow us enough time to take care of all the residents.
Thank you for doing that. I hear a lot of comments that people appreciate that. So
Oh, yeah, it's a great program.
Any questions for him? This is your.
Everything's going up.
Everything's going on.
Yeah.
Everything's going up 2%. Okay. Just trying to figure out a joke about trash talk, but I'm not getting there. So we'll just say thank you.
We got another day.
Does everything go out to the county landfill out there? Is that where the final
trash?
destination is?
No, the trash final destination is out in White City. It's a Dry Creek landfill. Yeah. So quite the jaunt. There's no landfill anywhere on the coast in the state of Oregon. So it all goes inland.
Gotcha. Okay. All right.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, next agenda item is number 9. This is on behalf of the North Bend Public Library. This is actually a services agreement. As part of the renovation construction, the library is going to have to do temporary storage of its items. And so they had competitively put out a bid. At this point, there's a cost of services of $12,199.35. It's covered under the library fund for professional services. And so it would be an agreement with Ferguson Transfer Company. And so if there's any questions, I am representing the library today.
Okay, any questions about that? Looks like things are starting to happen over there, so that's exciting. Okay, and.
The second one is very much akin to the previous agenda item. This is a lease agreement. This one will be with Pony Village Mall. The reason is that we need off-site storage. This will be about 4 months, 2,000 square feet. You may recall a previous agreement with the airport district. Monthly rent is $1,500 or 75 cents per square foot. Total cost estimated to be $6,000 for the full lease period. And so this is with, you'll see Julin Lodging. They're the owners of Pony Village Mall, and so that's actually who has the contract with. So that said, glad to answer any questions, and it is covered within the library professional services budget.
So the first one was getting it to the mall, was that the first thing that we talked about, and this is.
They move
storing it?
everything, and then
Okay.
we store.
Thank you.
Great.
Good question.
It's available.
All right, any other questions?
No?
All right, the next agenda item is number 11. This is the appointment to the Coos Bay Estuary Management Planning Steering Committee. It's on page 89 of your packet. And this time we'll hear from our city planner again.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and City Council. So as described in your packet, the City of North Bend must appoint a member of the council or their duly authorized representative to the Coos Bay Estuary Management Plan Joint Steering Committee. Coos Bay has appointed their Community Development Director. The International Port of Coos Bay has appointed their Chief Port Operations Officer, and we are outstanding. This decision and appointment is will of the council. I'd be happy to try to answer any questions that you have, but other than that, it's will of the council.
So, we could appoint our city planner?
That is within your rights.
Okay. Thank you. That is the comfortable direction that I would feel going in.
Do you have any idea how the rest of it's going? I mean, I applied to be on, I've got 38 years of maritime experience in the Port of Coos Bay. And I've never heard a word, and I know it all went to the county to start with.
So yeah, the Community Development Director for Coos County is kind of spearheading this, and she has held off on appointing anybody until she can appoint everybody.
Okay.
But
I shot at it, huh?
I will confirm that your application was received though.
Yeah.
Okay. So what we'll be looking then tomorrow night is to, it sounds like I'm hearing a consensus from the council to appoint our city planner to the committee? Is that what we're saying?
Planner, or are we reporting Councilor Goff?
Well, that was
No,
for something
no,
different.
For something different.
I'm on the private deal.
Yeah. What is the name of the private deal that you're on? Like just another, like, so.
That is the Technical Advisory Committee.
Technical advisor, got it.
Yeah,
Okay.
so there's three total committees within the Coos Bay Estuary Management Plan. So there's the Joint Steering Committee, the Citizens Advisory Committee, and the Technical Advisory Committee.
So he's the tech, or,
He wants.
Wants to be, yes.
Open.
I will confirm with the county that but that's separate from,
So this is the steering committee. Okay.
it's will of the council.
Oh, God, these boundaries are so painful.
okay,
Okay,
all right.
okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Poker face.
Alrighty, this pretty much puts us back now to our work session agenda. And so at this time, we have
Okay.
the Urban Renewal Agency agenda.
Urban Renewal Agency, okay. Got that packet in front of me?
All right, so after public comments, you have number 4, Urban Renewal Agency consent calendar. That'll be your draft September 24, 2024. URA minutes. Any issues with the consent calendar as presented?
No? Seeing none?
Which would be interesting, because if you pulled it out to vote on its own, well, it's on its own, so, but
Yeah.
just saying. The next is we have Lane Howard here. You may recall the URA previously agreed to an engagement with Ms. Howard for the urban renewal plan amendment. And that is in page 2 of your document. And so we'll now be giving the floor over to Ms. Howard. Hello, Elaine.
Hi, how are you all tonight? Nice to see you. Dave, are you wanting me to try to go through the PowerPoint or just to go over the top issues that we'll be covering tomorrow?
We're going to go through the PowerPoint and you'll have assistance with our CFO who's also here.
Okay, great. And are you showing the PowerPoint or am I?
I believe we are. I think
Okay.
she's it up now. You don't have it?
Can Elaine do
Is it in the, oh, Elaine, sorry, you have the PowerPoint and we're gonna put you in the driver's seat. That's right, we sent over the final version back and forth, so you have it. So you're in the driver's seat.
All right,
Sorry about that confusion.
no problem. Okay, is it up?
That looks like a photo like Macy created.
That's a really cool picture.
Isn't it beautiful? Yeah. So you say Doug Macy did that?
I don't know, did you do that, Macy? Where'd that come from?
I don't know.
I think you did do that.
Well, it's really pretty. So I've been working on this project with Nick Papanek and Ali Denko of Tiberius Solutions, and of course with your staff, who has been very helpful putting all the information together. So what I'll go through is the role of the agency and the process. I'll go through just a couple of highlights on the plan and report, do a financial overview, and then next steps and the motion that you'll be considering tomorrow. So the role of an agency in an amendment process is to review the draft amendment and decide whether or not to send it out through the full public review process as specified in ORS 457. That public review process is to allow public input at all phases as we go through this process, which includes the agency meeting tomorrow night. After the agency meeting, your staff will send out letters to all of the impacted taxing districts, and we will need to schedule a presentation to the county. We will meet with your planning commission for review of the amendment and the conformance with your comprehensive plan. And then you will have a city council hearing notice to all utility customers and a vote on a non-emergency ordinance. Dave, am I right that we're using utility customers?
For the actual communication, yes, communications have been going out to the utility customers, yes.
Okay, great.
Yes.
The updates in the plan are updates on the projects and increasing the maximum indebtedness. And then I just went through your plan, since it is a relatively old plan, with a fine-tooth comb to bring everything up to current standards. So if this amendment becomes adopted, your plan becomes a fresh plan that reflects standards in 2024. The projects are in specific categories of capital outlay, economic development, housing and government services, downtown streetscape, grants, street and utility upgrades, and parks and recreation. There, in the report on the plan, there are specific costs allocated to these different projects. Those costs are for the purpose of this amendment only. Your agency, through your budgeting process, can move those funds around and make adjustments to the amount of money allocated in the different projects as you've done forever. I listened earlier when you were talking about the potential kayak landing, that we've had projects and some of them get funded and some of them don't rise to the top of the priority list, and that will continue to be true in the future. You have control over when and where these funds will be spent. The report on the plan, so there's actually two documents. The first is the plan amendment, and it's a little confusing because it's in track changes to show what's being deleted and what's being added. And then the report on the plan is a clean document that is all of the technical information that's required by statute to do a substantial amendment. It goes through all of the existing conditions analysis that is specifically required by statute and makes financial projections based on what we know today, knowing that we don't know everything today, but we know enough today to give guidance to do a substantial amendment. The maximum indebtedness is proposed to be increased to $45.5 million. That increase is $33,699,277. So it's a large increase. That amount of increase, and I'll on the next slide, it shows how that's allocated to projects. But that amount of increase is basically to be able to fund the Housing and Government Services project, which is a very large project. The capacity, so that maximum indebtedness will be 45.5. A lot of that existing capacity of around 12 million has already been spent or allocated. So the new capacity that you will have will be around $31.7 million in today's dollars. And the difference between that increase in MI and the capacity is interest that gets paid on debt if you take out long-term debt. So that's why the total amount of maximum indebtedness that you would be getting is a couple $1 million higher than the actual capacity in today's dollars. This shows how we laid out the project costs in coordination with your staff, and it shows what those costs are in today's dollars. So that's the first column of numbers, and then the year of expenditure project costs. So you can see that most of these go up in time because of the cost of inflation annually. So the first column shows what we expect those to cost today. And then when we actually have enough money to do the projects, they will cost more as you move through time in the future. So you can see that the Housing and Government Services project is about $24.6 million in constant 2024 dollars of the $31.7 million total. So that takes up the majority of your spending for the future. The personnel services would be administrative costs to pay for staff to administer the urban renewal program. And then those other costs are over the lifetime, the continued lifetime of this urban renewal area, which would go until 2055. So the other costs in other categories. So in reality, the bulk of this money is going to your Housing and Government Services project. To be able to adopt this amendment, concurrence is required. Concurrence means you have to get 75% of the taxing districts who are impacted by the plan according to their permanent rate levy and the amount of impact they have to agree that it's okay to increase the maximum indebtedness. To get to that 75% total, you need concurrence by resolution of the city, the school district, and the port. Those three districts equal 75% of the impact on taxing districts. I know that your city administrator has had talks with all of these different districts. We anticipate that they look favorably along the amendment at the amendment, but we won't know for sure until we are able to get a resolution passed by their boards. These slides I know are probably a little difficult for you to see, but they're mostly to let you know that we do put together information on the impacts on the other taxing districts of this potential amendment. And the bottom line shows the total impacts. The city of North Bend for the general government taxing districts has the highest impact of, they have about $16.3 million out of a total general government impact of $23.5 million. And you can see the impacts that Coos County has an impact of $2.8 million. The Port of Coos Bay's impact is about $1.6 million. This shows the impacts on the education districts. The education districts are funded a little differently. They are funded through the state school fund, so the impact to them is indirect. It's not a direct impact on their budget. It's an impact on the state school fund. Historically, the state school fund has backfilled any of those monies that are lost due to urban renewal or housing incentives that are used statewide or enterprise zones, so that the funding that is at a per pupil basis does not go down as a result of urban renewal in any city across the state, not just North Bend. Because this is a substantial amendment, it is required to start revenue sharing when it meets certain thresholds as established in the statute. Those thresholds are 10% of your original maximum indebtedness, and your original maximum indebtedness was $12,664,000 something. So at the point that your agency would begin receiving, and we are projecting this will happen in 2034. It could happen earlier, it could happen later. We are projecting 2034. But at that point, the other taxing districts will begin getting a portion of the revenues that come or could have been allocated to the agency. So this just shows you what those total tax increment funds would be, the amount of money that would be shared with the other taxing districts, and that gets shared based on what their permanent rate levy is, and then the resulting tax increment funds to the agency. So it does provide a little benefit, a little bit of money back to those taxing districts as a result of doing the substantial amendment. And it doesn't nearly offset what is being taken from them to be able to do these projects. But we feel that the projects are very important to all taxing districts and your whole area, and that they all will benefit through the projects in your urban renewal area. The next steps and schedule, this pre-meeting tonight to go over the agenda, meeting tomorrow night. If you say you want to proceed, the taxing districts will be sent consult and confer letters on October 23rd. They get 45 days to respond to those letters. The Planning Commission meeting is scheduled for November 18th, a county briefing sometime before your city council hearing on December 10th, and a potential city council vote on December 10th. This is the motion that you'll be considering tomorrow night, and it just basically says that you are supportive of moving the urban renewal plan amendment through the public review process, including those groups that we just went through for the timing on moving the amendment forward. So that is the presentation, and your staff and I are happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the acting council / URA commissioners?
I have a question.
Question from Nora?
In the text that I'm reading here, this is from Mr. Bridgens, and it's on the second page. It says, while this change to permanent rate levies could significantly reduce the agency's tax increment financing revenues, a development currently underway by the Confederated Tribes will help to offset this reduction. Is this the development of the pellet shipping facility there north of the Mill Casino Hotel? Or because that's in the UR district, or is it something else? And maybe this question is for Mr. Bridgens.
It is.
It is, okay. Yeah, it's a pretty big change, but it seems to me that it proceeds very logically, and it's something that would help the city in the long run, while giving more tax funds to the overlying taxing districts that have kind of been missing out. Their income has been frozen at 1994 levels to date, and then with this change, then they stand to get a boost in the money that they're receiving from the urban renewal district.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
may I say something that I forgot or didn't put into the presentation?
Sure.
So presently, the Urban Renewal Agency receives money from a special levy that all of your taxpayers are paying. The tribe's money reimburses what you've been getting from that special levy, because that special levy will go away if you do this substantial amendment. So that is what will make your revenues go down. It also means that your taxpayers will be paying less taxes if this amendment goes forward, because the special levy will no longer exist. And the new funds that are coming through will not directly impact taxpayers. They will come solely from the taxing districts. And I should have put that in the presentation, and I'll make sure it's there tomorrow night.
Where would we see that?
Counselor Jones had a question, where will we see that?
Yeah, where would we see the drop of the levy? We see it on property
So tax bills are in your mailbox.
Yes.
And so there'll be a line item on there that says North Bend levy. That levy is what will disappear. That's the special levy.
Yeah. And Counselor Nordhoff had one more question.
Yes, I think that there are two lines on the tax bill. I looked at it, and there's one that's a special levy, and the other one's just North Bend urban renewal on individual homeowner levies. And could you talk about that, like when they were passed and what the difference was?
So if I may, the council went through extensive training, and so everybody in the city has a line item that says North Bend urban renewal. You have the inside the district and outside the district. And so when they froze the base for the plan, the increment, that is so that they can create the calculation. As you have learned through the URA training, if the URA went away, that line item would disappear, but it would then be added into your regular tax bill. So you're not paying any more or any less. And so that's very critical. The special levy is different, as that has been outlined. And so that is going away, and it's not going away for any other reason than you are almost to the end of your life cycle of the current. And so if you don't re-up, you potentially will reset to not. And so it will take a lot of years to regain any dollars to do any projects within your district. And so, again, just refer back to that great training that Elaine provided us in person.
Yeah.
Well, just dumb question, but what was the special levy for?
Elaine, you want to reiterate that?
I can. It's really confusing, and you are one of just a handful of you're special. You're one of a handful of agencies left in Oregon who have a special levy. So at many years ago, the legislature decided, it was after measures 547 were passed, they had to fund urban renewal differently. And when they set that up, they decided everybody had to have a maximum indebtedness, and then they changed the way that urban renewal was calculated and taken from the taxing districts. At that point, if that amount of money didn't equal the amount of money that you were getting prior to that, you were allowed to establish a special levy. And you were allowed to keep that special levy through the life of your plan until now that you do this substantial amendment. So number one, there aren't that many older urban renewal areas still out there. And two, not all of them had to establish this special levy.
And so if we, I believe we still have on our website, don't we, that URA training that you're referring to. So if the counselor wants to go back and see that, or if anybody's listening, I think it was really great training that's available, so they can find that on our website, probably just by searching URA.
If you go to the website and click the government and then get to the URA site, not only are the documents on there, but also the link to the video of
Yeah.
her training.
So have some light entertainment and learn more.
Yeah, when you can't go to bed at night.
Thank you for joining us. Do we have one more, was there another comment from our
Yes,
city finance
I was
director?
just because if anyone is searching for, I believe that trend is at 8.
Oh, and I thought you were also going to push the budget meeting, talk of the town too. Just in case anybody wants to watch those too.
That's on there too.
I always talk about how great that is. Okay, so thank you for that information. Looks like we have all our information that we need for tomorrow night. This would take us to our new item on the agenda tonight, which is our new agenda item 9, instead of adjournment, is we're going to ask our city our city attorney, Mr. Wolf, if he could just give us a little bit more information about the affidavit of compliance with resolution number 3287, and see if we have any counselors that have questions.
Yeah, so I mean, questions might be where we really kind of get into this, but there's the affidavit of compliance with resolution 3287, and compliance with state, federal, and local anti-discrimination laws. Essentially, this is a document for entities doing business with the city of North Bend to attest or affirm their commitments to following federal, state, and local anti-discrimination laws, and to show their support, I suppose, to resolution number 3287. I guess one intent or one purpose of this is that when North Bend gets state and federal grant money to dole out and to hire contractors and subcontractors, there is requirements in those grants that the city ensure that where this money is going, that these folks sign something in the contract that says we will specifically follow these anti-discrimination laws. The state of Oregon also has state procurement and public contracting rules that also have some other maybe less specific rules on anti-discrimination. And so this, I guess this affidavit to some extent is the, if the contract is the belt, then the affidavit of compliance are the suspenders, to help ensure that this person or this entity knows of these laws, knows that they need to follow them, and they're affirming or attesting that they're going to do so. And this doesn't take the place of required contract provisions when dealing with doling out large sums of federal or state dollars. So in some respects, it might not get the city a whole lot more protection. And so whether or not you want to, I guess, include this on every business dealing with the city of North Bend is a policy decision for the city. And I'm happy to field more questions. Your administrator might have some additional input that he would like to add, but happy to field some questions.
Well, I don't like it. I don't like it at all. And I've fielded quite a few questions since this deal went out. And I can guarantee you that the 7 people that voted for this resolution didn't see this coming. No way did they see a statement like, you do business here or you don't. This is like holding a gun to, and I get the contract thing. If you're talking about big time stuff, yeah, I get that. But if Ralph needs to send somebody down to Coos Head for a $10 tape measure and they gotta have something notarized first, I don't like it at all. And I'm hoping that all the councilmen have read this, council people have read this, because this was not the intent of 3287, not this piece of paper. I'll guarantee you, I've talked to several ex-councilmen that signed that resolution, whether all, nobody seen this coming. And like I said, I agree, and I know why all this is happening, and I can't believe we're going to this extent for one item. This, I don't like it at all. Anybody else want to talk about it? Cause I don't like it at all. There you go.
Thank you, Counselor Gall.
I don't agree with it either. I mean, we've got contract documents when we've got big projects. We got federal money, we got state money. And there's already anti-discrimination documents in there that the contractors have to sign, isn't there?
There are when they come under the public contracting rules, which is ORS 279A through 279C. It does not when it's under other grant funds and also private grant funds that also have stipulations. And then also the grant funds to the state, and that comes under ORS 659A, which say that vendors must adhere to these standards when providing services or goods funded by public money. And so, as I had conveyed to the council, we as a city do not want to be in the investigatory business. We have an existing resolution. If the council wants to take a change or modify that, it's always the will of the council. But this is to adhere without, and in the statement, we made it very clear that we're not going out and sort of investigating. We're making sure that when the state or the feds have contacted us, the state actually contacted us twice. Why? Because our city showed up in that news article. And so we heard from the Port Authority. The Port Authority wanted to know what North Bend was doing and vice versa. We collaboratively came to what I believe was a good compromise. We have most recently undergone similar audits from EPA and the Department of Transportation. We're about to undergo further by HUD once we initiate the $4 million. So on federal contracting, and then when we do contracting external documents, absolutely, it's already been in there. And then this simply extends to make sure that we're also covered under 659A and allows us to get past quite a bit of the communications that have come in. I provided those to you. Most recently was the South Coast Health Equity Coalition that wanted to know what we were doing and how we were doing it. We shared with them what we're doing, how we're doing it. They seemed fine with that. If there's forms of discrimination, for instance, under HUD, we're required to actually put processes on our site. It's why there's a specific complaint form on the police department site. It's why under our housing site, there's also a specific equity complaint form. We're required to do those. And so this was just another extension to get past what may or may not be discriminatory practices. And as I said, I'm not going to get into the investigation process. I'm just going to make sure that we're in compliance. And so far, I checked with staff today. We've had no pushbacks. We have a purchase order that triggers the amount and triggers the request. And so far, we have 100% compliancy on it. Once it's in the file, we move on. It's a one-time thing. And I've got over a page plus of everyone that's in compliance. We've had questions from some folks. Once we explained it to them, they've had no problem. And they're just simply saying that they're not engaging in such. And so therefore, they'll continue to do business and use public funds for those services, whether it's grants, private foundation grants, state, federal, or state procurement.
Well, we can sugarcoat it all we want, but I don't know, if you read that thing and you have 50 employees, would you sign it? Do you know what that employee's doing at home? Would you sign that?
Has nothing to do with what they're doing on home, First Amendment, or on their own. So
Well,
This is
I'm
their
gonna-
business
Counselor-
practice.
That ain't how that
Counselor Gall, I'm going to go ahead and give another counselor a chance to ask questions or make comments. So Counselor Jones?
Yeah, so Counselor Gall brings up some interesting points. You know, the language seems, to me, this is a way for the city to avoid a complaint system where, oh, I heard something about this or that. It's like once a company is doing business with us or an entity is doing business with us, we have the affidavit and we pass on any liability that we may have. And these laws are already was presumed, we already have state and federal laws that require this for state and federal funds. And, some grant, some big, Ford Foundation, other big players that we're drawing money from are also requiring this. So, once we get an affidavit, we move on. We never ask again. It's it's those agreed terms that we all click on.
Holding a gun to their head.
Well, I don't think the employers are responsible for what their people do at home, but I don't.
That ain't how I.
I was one of the old people that voted on this thing.
Yeah,
This wasn't the intent.
no.
Counselor Nordoff, do you have any comments?
What was the intent?
I confess, I got most of the way through our assigned reading, but I didn't get this far, so I'm gonna have to go home and read it again, but at first glance, I think I'm more closely aligned with Jenny Jones than with Pat, and all due respect to Pat.
Is this something that you want to put on a work session for further discussion, or was there some changes that are being made to the affidavit?
Oh, I would have loved some.
Counselor Hall, please.
What?
Just wait here. Or, yes, thank you. You're saying yes. I think Mr. Wolf was going to say something.
Oh, was that directed to me? Sorry.
I remember it as me.
Yeah, so I am taking a closer look at it, and I'll probably have some recommended tweaks to it that I will be sending to your administrator within a couple of days, I imagine.
Okay.
And I know we got a lot on our plate here, but I think this is a big enough deal that maybe that we should have had a work session before this was made, just so that we can be, in my opinion, a little business friendlier than this statement is. Either do it or you're done. I'm done.
Counselor Schultz, did you have any comments?
No, that's not how I read it, but I'm okay.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
I hear that it's an extra worry, it's an extra consideration, and for somebody who maybe is, doesn't know how all the wheels turn, which, who knows how all the wheels turn, it might seem scary, you don't want a bureaucrat poking around in your wheat field saying, I want 11% oats and 42% rye, and you say, well, I only grow wheat here. You don't want, you don't want somebody coming in saying you have to do something when you think, I can't do it another way. And we also have, we're in a rural area, we have, people who we need their services from. But this is already on the books and has been for a long time, not from the city specifically, but from, the governments above us.
I still like to have a work session on it.
Okay.
Let's do it.
Let's go ahead then and request that to be added to the next work session and to see any revisions that we may have from that and,
Revisions to the affidavit,
yes.
not the resolution.
Or, yeah, we
No,
could do,
I don't have a problem with the resolution.
yeah.
That
We can-
resolution's fine.
We can take time to go through that then during the next work session, and to take another look at it. How's that sound?
Absolutely.
Okay, all right, then that was the last thing, I believe, on the agenda. And so I will go ahead and adjourn tonight's meeting.